In this video, we are going to do a little recap of our experience living as full-time travelers in Paris for a month. We were there in the winter time around the holidays. We did a lot of fun activities, which we'll tell you about, places that we loved the most, restaurants, also the food scene as far as the markets go. And we'll talk about the different neighborhoods, arrondissements in Paris, and which were our favorites, as well as how we got around and any other recommendations and tips we picked up along the way. And we'll share with you what it cost for us to live there for a month.
So both Kathy and I had been there before in the past, she twice, me once. And this time we stayed in the 18th arrondissement, which is on the northern edge of the city proper, and we really enjoyed our neighborhood. The weather was cold, as you can imagine, winter, holidays. It was on the cold days in the 20s, warm days in the 40s, a little drizzle here and there, not too much rain.
So the 18th arrondissement is on the edge of town. Paris is like kind of a big circle, and the arrondissements kind of go in a bit of a concentric circle around. So going from the edge of Paris, the 18th, into the center of Paris, we often pass through these two neighborhoods, the 9th arrondissement and the 10th arrondissement, which ended up being two of our standout favorites. Now, we tried to visit most arrondissements during our time there, as well as the Marais area and the Latin Quarter, which we also enjoyed. But the 9th and 10th are extremely charming. They're, the 10th especially is a little edgier. They also have really cute shops, great vintage, great little jewelry shops, great food. So just an authenticity that we really enjoyed.
We went to 4 museums while we were there. The Louvre, Musée d'Orsay, the Petit Palais, and the Banksy Museum. From favorite to least favorite for me was least favorite Louvre. Actually, I went the other way around. Least favorite Louvre, Musée d'Orsay, Petit Palais, and then I really liked the Banksy Museum. The city has a lot of street art, and so it was really fun to be immersed in the street art of the city as we walk around all the time, and then go into the Banksy Museum, which was really enjoyable for me.
So as far as restaurants go, I mean, I think everybody knows the restaurants and the food scene in general in Paris is amazing. We did not, because we were there for so long, we did not eat at a lot of fancy restaurants. Also, for us, the experience of eating out is more for the scene. So we did a lot of taking in cafe culture. We went to more casual brasseries. We often stopped for small meals at boulangeries. But two of our favorites restaurant-wise that stood out, one of them is called Le Progrès, and that was a lovely restaurant. We feature it actually in our 2 days in Paris video, which you can watch after you finish this one. And then the other one is the Chartier restaurants, and there's probably about, I don't know, 4 to 6 of those. But that is a very classic, for the people kind of restaurant in Paris. Yes, it's touristy, but it's also full of Parisians. Very classic French dishes served at affordable prices, but in a very classic French scene. So it's very much worth going. It makes for a fun evening, and it's fun to go with a group or just the two of you. We had a good time.
Yeah. Yeah, and the other side of the food scene in Paris is the markets. It is a market city, from the small little local markets to the big covered markets. We really enjoyed it all. And we also did another video on the large covered markets where we visit 7 of them and give you kind of a detailed perspective on each one.
So one of our favorite activities in Paris is really just walking. And it's interesting because if you talk to people, like we meet, some Parisians along the way, and their recommendation was just to walk around. And that is one of our favorite things to do. So quite frequently, we would have a day where we had a place in mind that we wanted to go to, and we would just from there, say, okay, that's an hour walk from here. And we wouldn't just, walk out the door and just walk straight there. We would really take our time to wander, to make sure we cross through different arrondissements to get to those destinations. And we would stop and have a bite to eat or a glass of wine or a coffee, and just really soak up the beauty of Paris.
Yeah. And another part of Paris that we really enjoyed was the cafe culture, and the fact that the Parisians are not in a hurry, and it's very pleasurable to be in that, just the culture and the vibe that comes along with that. And where it really shines is when you go to a restaurant or a cafe, in particular the cafes, the boulangeries, and what's the other one called? The
brasseries.
Brasseries, yeah. You go in there, you can order a single shot of espresso, or you can order a huge meal and follow up with espresso or not. But the waiter or waitress are not trying to pressure you to do anything that you don't want. They'll actually not even come by and say hi to you unless you ask for help, and they won't ever prompt the check on you. It's you have to ask for the check. And you can literally hang out there for hours, read your book, have another espresso, just drink some water. So that part was one of my favorite parts of Paris.
Yeah. It's funny because as Americans, it takes a little getting used to, right? We're used to being kind of hustled out the door. We're used to, like, as soon as you, before you even take your last bite, the check is already on the table. Is there anything else you want? We're just used to that. So it takes a little getting used to the very casual, take your time, enjoy life kind of approach. So talking about how we handled our food as full-time travelers. So one of the advantages of traveling a little bit longer term, but you can do this even if you're just going for a week, is by staying in an apartment where you have a little bit of a kitchen, even if it's like just a kitchenette, you can really take advantage of the market scene in Paris, and it is extraordinary. So we would eat out, of course, but then we also had just as much fun getting to know the local purveyors that are around our neighborhood, as well as sometimes when we would be out, we would go to a different neighborhood's purveyors and pick up, the cheese, the baguette, some wine, some meats at the butcher. And they're each very individualized, but they tend to also cluster them in groups. And that's really helpful. Mm-hmm. So there's the butcher, the boulangerie, the fromagerie. All of these things are near each other. So it's easy. It's not as inconvenient as it might sound to have them all separate. They're not stores where each time you get in a car and drive to the next one. And then there's these covered markets, which are kind of almost like farmers markets, but a lot of them are there permanently, and they're closed maybe 1 or 2 days a week, but they're all going at different times, so you can always find one. And the freshness is bar none, the best, and the deals are the best. So yeah, we just really enjoyed shopping that way and doing some of our own cooking. We even tried our hand at oyster shucking, which was a lot of fun. And we'll have to try it many more times before we're good.
Delicious. When you shuck your own oysters, it's delicious. And then in regards to getting around, the metro is very convenient in Paris, and there's all these different lines that cross. Google Maps is a good starting point where you can, tick the box where you can see public transit and you can see all the different lines with their colors. We got an app called Bonjour, RATP. You can load it with rides, and then you can use your phone to tap when you go into the public transit and onto the buses and the light rail. Same app works for all of them. It actually was set up where the app moved things onto kind of a card in my Apple Wallet. And it's reasonably priced. I think it was like $3 a ride each direction, pretty much.
And that was super helpful too, because once you have it already loaded and you have it in the app and everything, it gets really crowded sometimes in the metro, when it's rush hour and everybody's going home from work and they're coming and going from the museums or whatever. And just being able to quickly bleep your phone and get through is hugely helpful. You do not want to buy tickets every time you want to go on the metro.
That would be very painful. So then also walking. So as Kathy touched on earlier, one of our favorite things to do in Paris is to walk. The attention to detail that the Parisians have had all throughout history, including some of their newer buildings and sculptures and stuff, is phenomenal. Kathy did a really good job of planning our journeys with our walks. And then I would do the transit part. And so oftentimes we would take a metro one direction, and then our walking journey would begin heading back towards our home, or vice versa. And so, mixing walking in with public transit is one of the best things about public transit. You don't need to park your car. You don't need to go back to your car. You can get all creative with all these different legs that you build into your day.
Now, another funny thing that we learned about being in Paris so long, unless you stay just in the very touristy areas, like right around the Eiffel Tower, or right around the museums or something, the eating hours are fairly strict. It's not written down, and the restaurant will say it's open, and it will indeed be open, but they are not going to serve you if you're outside of the eating times. So we learned the hard way that from 12 to 2:30 is essentially lunch, and from about 7 or 8 p.m. is dinner until, until dinner's over, until 11 maybe, is dinner time. Outside of those two eating blocks, and they don't really have typically full breakfast in the morning. It's like a croissant maybe and a cafe. But as far as lunch and dinner go, if you're outside of those times, the best thing that we found to do was to just pop into a boulangerie and get one of their sandwiches. There's some delicious sandwiches that are either freshly made right then or have just been freshly made and are displayed in the window. Some of them they press on the little, like a panini type of thing. They're just delicious. They have wonderful coffee, of course, and you can just hang out and enjoy. It's less expensive and you can get food. Otherwise, it's very hard unless you are just, like I said, staying in the touristy areas.
So Amazon is not a thing in Paris. I mean, I think some people might try and achieve it, but the buildings that you're staying in are not set up to receive packages very well. But then the culture in France in general and in Paris in particular, there's little markets all around the city, and every neighborhood has got a little electronics store, and it's got a little luggage store, and clothing stores, and pharmacies all over. Little pharmacies, not big ones, little ones.
Pharmacies are awesome.
Yeah. So as with walking all around and being with your people, getting out to just buy things at the local market, whether not just food, but all this other stuff that you would oftentimes in the States order to have delivered to your place, is part of the experience. Getting to see people out on the streets, and in particular the vendors, and having a great interaction with the the people all the time was a neat part of the experience. For
Yeah.
us.
So in other words, the culture in the United States of like constantly having Amazon orders delivered to your door every day, and you're just, oh, I need this, and you just order it or whatever, that is not a thing in Paris. Don't plan on doing that. You know, if you need things, you just go out to the local stores and you're supporting the local economy, and that's really the way it should be. And it saves also a lot of waste, like not all that huge extra packaging and stuff like that. So it's good.
And one thing you do have to do is like do a little research to find these stores, but Google is pretty helpful for that in the maps, and then calling to make sure they have what you want before you trudge across town.
Yeah.
But that's all part of the experience. So yeah.
Yeah. And another quick note, just back on the walking real quick, you know, you hear people talk about like, how are the French eat a lot of butter, you know, how are they so thin? How are they so fit? It's not by accident, for sure. For one, obviously the portions are smaller, but also walking as much as you do, just, you know, to get any little thing that you want. You're going out to the store, you're walking across town, you're going up and down the stairs at the metro. You are burning off a lot of calories, and that is, so it was no mistake. But you'll walk 15 to 20,000 steps a day, easy, no problem in Paris. We did that very, very frequently.
One of the other things about the city, which was very pleasing to me, I'm kind of an outdoorsy person who loves the city as well. You know, we spent a lot of time in New York City right before coming into Paris, and we love New York for its different reasons. But the buildings in New York and Manhattan are like, you know, 80 floors all around you. You oftentimes, most of the day, will never feel sunlight on your face. And in Paris, the tallest building you'll see in any given day when you're out on the city is like 6 stories, maybe. And there's a little bit of history I read while we were there. There's one monstrosity of a building on your way out to the airport, and I forget what they call it, but it's kind of like a tombstone. It's this tall black thing on the horizon, and they allowed them to build that, the developers to build that, like, I think it was like 12 years ago or 15 years ago, and the Parisians hate it. It's like a eyesore on their horizon. And so it caused them to really double down on the rules for how tall new buildings can be. So I think there is a limit on most all of the city proper with all those arrondissements. You can't go above like 6 stories. So it's a pleasure walking around and having sunlight and sky all around you all the time.
Quality for the cost, I feel, is much, much better than coming from the United States. Just, you know, sometimes the cost is equivalent. We're going to talk about costs in a minute, but quality as far as the groceries go, the produce, certainly the cheese, obviously, the baked goods. They even have a law about the bread. So baguette traditionnelle is the baguette that has to be baked that day and literally only can have these 4 ingredients of the flour, the salt, the yeast, and the water, I think. And that's it. And it has to be baked that day on the premises. So that's a beautiful law.
Not only does it have to be baked that day, like
it's frequently warm.
we hit the boulangerie like every day pretty much. And I'd say like 70% of the time we walked out with a warm, fresh out of the oven baguette.
Yeah, and they cost like about the equivalent of $1.25, €1.20.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah,
and you get to pick from in the fromagerie. I'm not joking. There's got to be like 100 different rounds of cheese you can choose and try all these little tastes and then walk home whichever one you want.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we wanted to go over some of the expenses with you. So pull up my little sheet here. So we booked through Airbnb, and you get a really big discount. Well, every one of the hosts decides what discount they want to give you. We were able to find one that gave a nice healthy discount for the 28-day mark is the mark, which is around a month, and $2,360 for the month over the holidays. Quite reasonable for Paris. And it was a cute little flat that had a 1 bedroom, a living room, a kitchen, and washer and dryer. So our groceries, $620. Our eating out, $1,260. And albeit these are a little more expensive than they would have been just the two of us, just bear in mind, because we had our daughter with us for 2 to 3 of those weeks.
So you could probably easily take off like 20% off the top of those if it were just the two of us on the food.
Yeah. Transportation was $313, and that was all public transit and by and large all the metro. We didn't rent a car at all,
and we were out and about a lot.
Actually, that did include one ride from the airport on an Uber.
Oh yeah,
which was a mistake. I would not recommend doing that. There's other ways to get from the airport. Then our phone plans for the two of us for the month, which includes like our overarching plan and then the data behind it, were a total for the both of us of $47. And we had plenty of data, 5G, everything worked really well. Our fitness, we do that a little differently in each of our spots. We chose not to join a gym in Paris. We will do that in other places. And so what we did was we bought 2 different weights of dumbbell, and they were expensive if we would have bought 2 sets. So we just bought one of each and we just used an arm. But we were out on the street every day, so we kept quite fit, but we wanted to keep our strength up as well. So total there was $33. Our health insurance, $1,100, and there's multiple components to that, which you can learn more about if you go to our website, goodliferoad.com, where there'll be more detail on all of these expenses. Our entertainment, which includes the museums, some of our subscriptions like Netflix and Apple TV, and then buying books fall into that category too, $295. So thank you for sticking around, and we're gonna do these every now and then when we're at different places around the world, so keep a lookout for others. And
thank you, Paris, for being so good to us. We had a wonderful time there, and like Derek said, visit us at goodliferoad.com if you want to see some more detail on the budgets, and we'll be adding other budgets as we travel to other places. Some of the time, not all the time. And what else?
Well, we have 2 other Paris videos we did. We have one, it's a 2-day vlog out on the town. You can see that up here. And then we also have another one on the covered markets. We went in depth on 7 of them, I think.
Yeah, there were 7 different markets. So yeah, you can look at our Paris markets video.
There.
And thank you for watching.
Oh, and subscribe and like if you want to stick around and come along for the journey.
Bye.
Bye.